I bet I drill a clean hole in somebody today.
Today I want to do a tier list. I put about 82 hours into Tekken 8. Now, I don't know if I'll play a little bit after this, but you know, that's a lot of time already put into it. Now, that is divided across the closed network test and the beta test. And transitioning from the closed network to the beta, the developers said they were going to change a lot of things around. But something that stood out to me a lot is they said that some characters underperformed and they tweaked those characters. That told me that some characters were going to be wildly different, and I was keeping an eye out for those because for Jun Kazama, that's a character I continue to highlight because the developers continue to highlight her. They said she underperformed in the closed network test, so I wonder where she falls now in terms of usage, right? In terms of gameplay, I think she's very powerful. I think a lot of the characters is very powerful. At the start of this, before we dive into the actual tier list, I just want to say that this one is just my own experience. I'm not trying to define which characters is the best for everyone, just what I was able to see and understand and process within the 3 days of playing. There's a lot of things that I missed, a lot of characters I didn't really get that much time with, like Asuka, a Paul Phoenix, a Zhao Yu. I think Zhao Yu's strong, but I just didn't play her enough or play against her enough to see how strong. But in no way do I think that any of these characters is bad. I still think a lot of these characters is busted and needs to be toned down in a lot of ways. But number one, the most busted character, I think it's not even a conversation, is Jin Kazama. Pretty much every character got worse going into the beta, but Jin Kazama got better. More deadly, more damage, more just everything. This guy's a monster. I think he's hands down the number one strongest character in this version of Tekken 8, followed up by Jun Kazama, his mother. I think this character is really powerful, but not in the same way that Jin Kazama is. Jin Kazama is just a beast, but I think Jun Kazama, you do got to be very smart, very strategic, and if you can reach the full potential of, full potential in 3 days, right? But if you can reach the full potential of this character, I think you could do a lot of things with Jun Kazama and push her and really like shut down your opponent in many different ways. I think Jun Kazama's number 2. Number 3 was tough. I was thinking about Harang, I was thinking about Nina, I was thinking about a lot of characters, Claudio, but the reason why I went with Harang is simply because he doesn't give you an opportunity to fight back. It's the same exact way it was in a closed network test, except the chip damage is a little bit less. This character will still pressure you to death and he would never have an opportunity to fight back. Harang is still pretty much a monster. Now that's my top 3. Moving on to the next 5 characters. The top 3 I think is like just gods. The next 5 I think is still very powerful, but it's just a difference between the top 3, right? A small difference. Lily this time around is a monster. She is very good. She just has everything. She has some really good lows. She's really fast. She has good combos, good damage. This is just a well-rounded character. I think this is the strongest Lily probably has ever been, at least in Tekken 7 and Tekken 8. Tekken 7, she's never been this strong. Tekken 8, she's very powerful. And once again, when you talk about them pushing the character to new heights, this is one of them. Next is Nina. I think Nina, her grabs is very powerful, very hard to see. And maybe if you spend a little bit more time fighting against her, you can see when a Nina wants to do it and not do it. But as it stands, this character is a monster. Aquafina is interesting. I wasn't able to reach the full potential of this character, but seeing other people play this character and just fighting against her, you really do not have a lot of options. I think her parry is so interesting because you yourself can't trigger the parry. You just sit there and wait for the opponent to press something, and sometimes the opponent will press something without you even intending on doing the parry. Like there's been so many times where I do something and then the character automatically goes into the parry and then the opponent jabs or something and then the character just responds on their own. That aspect is a little bit weird. Of course, you're in the parry stance, and that's how the parry stance works. But Claudio's kind of the same thing he was in the closed network test. You could really put him higher, but like I said, I haven't put that much time into all these characters to know where he falls. But Claudio, same story. This guy is powerful. Feng Wei is really powerful too. One thing that's very interesting about Feng too is he has a lot of like plus frames. Like he has the plus frame. It's like a wild standing knee that he does on, and on block it's super plus frames. And then he has his kick punch. I don't know what it is, but it's like you'll see Feng players looping it. It's like a high kick, high punch. It's like over and over and over. Then when you press a button, they parry you and they hit you. And it's like, I don't know what that is. It's crazy. Fang is really good. I was tempted to put Raven up here as well, but I think Raven takes a little bit more effort than all of these guys to use. Maybe effort isn't the best way to describe it, but I think Raven takes a little bit more, and also you can fight back against them. These characters like above, you can't really fight back against them, and that's what I think the main difference between the characters are. Is like the top ones, no fighting back. The very good section, you can fight back here and there, but sometimes you'll just get shut down. The strong, you can fight back, but if you don't, the character will just landslide you. I think Raven and his clones and his teleporting is really interesting, and I think that's something that makes him really good. Seeing a Raven player use that stuff, you really could. It's difficult to hit him, pin him down. You know, it's very difficult to shut down Raven. Now, there's a lot of talk about Kazuya being trash. You know, the Kazuya players was going from stream to stream, Twitter to Reddit, saying that this guy is trash, and I don't think he's trash. I think he's not as powerful as he was, one, but then two, I think Kazuya, you just gotta naturally work harder with this character. That's what you guys ask for with this guy. You know, you want a character who's difficult to use, who's challenging, and yeah, he's going to be a lot more tricky than most of the characters on the roster, and as such, you're going to have to fight harder to win. But I still think just because he's difficult does not mean that this character will not destroy you, because he is very powerful. Counter hits, damage, name it. Jack 8 is another character. So Jack 8 is a character who I think a lot of people get bullied by. You know, I was doing a lot of like bully, pressure. But the more that I was playing Jack 8, the more I realized that there was ways to escape out of it. Crouching, sidestepping. There's a lot of ways that I think players haven't yet explored or found out, discovered is the word, to defeat Jack 8. And just going from player to player and seeing how each person was, trying to evade and some people successfully doing so. If one person collected all of that knowledge, which you would do once the game comes out and you spend some time playing against him, I think Jack 8 will fall a lot farther and people will realize this character is not that good. Well, I'm not gonna say not that good, but he's not that good in comparison to the others, right? He's no Feng Wei, he's no Claudio. I think a lot of what Jack 8 does is just people not yet understanding the matchup. Lars is really good. There's not really much for me to say. This guy kind of does it all as well. Lars is like a weaker Jin Kazama. He has a lot of good stuff, but he just can't bully you and just shut you down the way that Jin can. A really good Lars will make you think this guy is like broken, but Lars is kind of like a weaker Jin Kazama is how I would explain it. King is tricky because King, he really relies on his grabs. He really relies on you not breaking it. If you break his grabs, it's a totally different game, different matchup. Doing all of this stuff that he's doing, power crush, grabs, running, tackling, jumping, hopping, he's tricky, but he's not too tricky. I think it's easier for you to bully King than King to bully you. Yes, he can grab you and all this stuff, but that doesn't mean that he could just win. Now, the bottom 5 strong. The reason why I have this one named strong as well as the top one is simply because I feel like these characters are kind of the same. All 9 of these characters, wait, is this 9? No, 11 of these characters, they're pretty similar. I think, how can I describe it? They're good for where they're currently at in like the beta. They're really, really strong. But I think they're just different from the rest of the pack. Asuka, Paul Phoenix is nothing like he was in Tekken 7. Same thing with Brian Fury. Leroy Smith got a huge nerf. I think Jiayu could be raised up higher, but I don't have enough experience with her to really put her higher. And the same thing with Law. Law is way at the bottom because I barely seen him, barely played against him, so it's hard for me to say where he truly falls. So this is basically all 19 characters, just my experience so far with them.